We'll start things off in Chapter 2 by making a brand new diagram. And we'll start by making a new diagram by beginning with a blank slate. So what I've done is I've closed out all previous diagrams that I've made with Visio, and this is what you might see. Now you will rarely see something like this because most of the time when you open Visio, you're also going to select a file to open with Visio. But in this case, we're not going to do that. We're going to start here. We're going to start in the Backstage view, and by clicking on the new item in the Backstage view, I will create a new diagram. Now you have several templates to choose from here. I'll create a blank drawing and see what happens. Just blank drawing, this is what you can expect. I'll create it based on metric units. And you see the big effect that it has is going to be on the left side in the Shapes panel or Shapes pane. I'm going to close this and start up again by now selecting a basic diagram. I'll create this. And now you see that I have more stencils up here, or group titles. That's really technically what a stencil is. And then you have the individual shapes down here. Now I'll close this and just show you one other example, which is create a new flowchart. So say that's what I had in mind. What you need to understand is that none of these things come pre-made, pre-baked. If you want to make a template, you can certainly and use a bunch of shapes as a starting point. But really, with all of these items that you see in the Backstage view, all you're getting in the area of a template is that you're getting some predefined stencils, some predefined collections of shapes that you'll have to work with. So I'm going to make us a basic diagram. And I'm going to base it off of US units, and we'll see what we dealt with in the previous chapter. These stencils here, quick shapes, basic shapes, arrow shapes, and so on. And depending on what I select, I have things to pick from, the individual shapes, down here at the bottom. Let's start things off in this diagram by just dragging 3 shapes over here into our drawing. So we have one page in our drawing, and I'll start with a triangle. And notice that the mouse pointer changes to the arrow with the 4-headed arrow behind it. And so you can see the screen tip tells you to drag it onto the page and use the yellow squares to modify the shape. So that's exactly what I'll do. I'll drag and I will drop. And you'll notice as I move this thing around the page that I get this line. What is that line all about? That's a byproduct of the Smart Grid. And the Smart Grid will help you align things. It's something that's working in the background to help make your drawings nice and tidy and neat. So we'll talk about that more as we continue on. But for now, I'm just going to drag a triangle. I'll drag a square. And here, again, notice these arrows between. That is going to be the Smart Grid once again at work. So if I get that Smart Grid, or if I see that guide bisecting the triangle and the square as I drag and drop it on here, then I know that these things are level. Finally, let's drag and drop a circle. And you can see the Smart Grid once again helping me guide these things onto the page so that it's not only aligned, but it's also equidistant apart from the other shape. So the distance between here and here is going to be the same as here to here when I let go of the mouse once I see those 2 arrows. And the reason I'm not letting go is because the arrows, those smart guys will go away. So drag and drop till I get here, and these 3 things are on the page. They're centered, and the distance between the shapes is equal. So that's what's going on thanks to the Smart Grid. And if for some reason you aren't seeing those lines, those helpers, then what you need to do is enable that Smart Grid, which also goes by the name of Dynamic Grid. In fact, Dynamic Grid is what Visio calls this thing that I've been referring to as the Smart Grid. So where you enable it and disable it, and it should be enabled by default, is from the View tab. And in Visual Aids, you see the Dynamic Grid checked and unchecked. Make sure it's checked. I really think you'll like its use as you make your Visio diagrams.